Too, thanks.
We'll get started in about 1 minute. Ms. Marvin, if you could please mute your microphone. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's meeting for April 21st, 2021. Before we get started today, I would just like to thank all the administrative professionals that work at the Public Service Commission, particularly in this virtual environment. It's oftentimes difficult to do everything from get our meetings arranged to finding the documents and filings for all the cases before the commission. So I want to thank the many administrative professionals that help us out every single day. We do have meeting minutes to approve from our last administrative meeting on April 14th. We'll take a vote of approval of those minutes, beginning with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 4 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is an application from Centrica Business Solutions Optimized LLC for a license to supply electricity as a curtailment service provider. Item number 2 is an application from Aaron Wackhouse for certification of a geothermal heating and cooling facility. Item number 3 is an application from North American Biofuels LLC for certification as a renewable energy facility. And finally, item number 4 is a request from Taylor Consulting and Contracting LLC to cancel its electricity and natural gas supplier licenses.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions on the consent agenda? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask a question about item number 1. Companies applying for a curtailment service provider and they're applying for a license. And I noticed they're operating in several other states, but they're not licensed in any of the other states. And that was the extent of the information on the buck sheet regarding maybe the posture or the integrity or the complaint history of this company. And so I wanted to just ask Ms. Shang if we had looked at maybe the Attorney General, the equivalent of the Consumer Protection Division that we have in Maryland with regard to complaints, or do we go beyond, the public utility commissions or public service commissions of the states they're operating in?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Nan Zhang on behalf of staff. We don't have any complaints recorded in any other states or in Maryland for this applicant.
So where did that information come from? I guess that would be my question.
They are not licensed in all other states.
Right. So that's what I said. They're not licensed. So did we check with maybe the Attorney General's office, the Consumer Protection Division equivalent? Maryland has the Attorney General has a Consumer Protection Division, or did we check with the Better Business Bureau? Do we check with anything other than a Public Utility Commission or Public Service Commission?
If I might, we sometimes check the Better Business Bureau sites. We're generally not familiar with what other states' equivalents of the Office of Consumer Protection of the Attorney General are. So, and we have not done that. And the other thing is, I mean, we are the only state, as far as I know, that actually licenses CSPs. the business model is very different from a typical supplier. There's generally less opportunity. I mean, because what's happening there is that money is being given to sent back to customers in exchange for their willingness to have their service curtailed. So the opportunity for fraud and the marketing is very is much less there. So we are somewhat less concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, the reason I wanted to pursue this line of question was to really send a signal by way of question. And the signal is this for me, and I can't speak for the commission, I can speak for myself, but this commissioner will increasingly have increased scrutiny over the complaint history, the integrity, the corporate culture of these companies applying for licenses in Maryland. We saw that last week on an item that was on, or last week or 2 weeks ago, an item that was on a consent agenda at an AM. And we've created a consumer, in our Consumer Affairs Division, a compliance enforcement unit. We have increased our enforcement activities, and these companies are going to continue to get higher scrutiny, at least for me. And I wanted to signal that to staff and to these companies, to be honest with you. It's no longer status quo ante with regard to getting a license rubber stamped in Maryland. We're going to be looking at your history, your integrity, and your corporate culture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. I think you do raise a good point, and I would underscore that as well. That the days where this commission has effectively rubber stamped applications, whether they be for CSPs or for retail energy suppliers, is effectively over. We will be paying greater vigilance to the histories of these companies, both in terms of compliance in other states, complaints that are filed by consumers. And we're going to peek behind the curtain, take a look at all the information that's before us before we grant them with the rights and privileges to serve customers in Maryland. And I think you've seen the commission ramp up its enforcement process over the past 12 months with a number of prosecutions of potential wrongdoing in cases currently underway. So I do appreciate your flagging that issue, Commissioner. Any other questions on this item or the other 3 items? Seeing none, I'm prepared to make a number of motions here. With respect to item number 1, I move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to the provision of curtailment services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in its application. With respect to item number 2, I move that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility certification number with the energy savings estimate, that we direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification and file a geothermal and thermal biomass generation report with the commission within 1 week of each recording of generation data with GATS of RECs created, and that we direct the applicant to file notice with the commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in its application. With respect to item number 3, I move that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number, and direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification, and direct the applicant to notify the commission within 30 days of the information on which the application is based should change. With respect to item number 4, I move that we approve the cancellation request. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell. And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Motions are approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, there is one item on today's administrative agenda, item number 5, a request from Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc. to revise its bill stabilization adjustment monthly factors. On this item for staff, we have Kenneth Albert, Lucy Shea, and Drew McAuliffe, and for the company, Mark McDougall, Eugene Bradford, and Tammy Filmer.
Good
Thank
morning,
you. Good
Chairman.
Morning, Mr. Albert. Please
Good
proceed.
morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addresses a request by SMECO to revise the monthly revenue factor that underlies SMECO's calculation of the BSA surcharge in connection with the commercial and industrial customers who are served under the General Service Demand Rate Schedule, the GSD rate schedule. The BSA is a mechanism that on a monthly basis corrects for any under or over recovery of base revenue established in SMECO's most recent rate case. The BSA surcharge is either a charge or a credit that is calculated by comparing actual base revenue with the authorized base revenue, with the authorized revenue being determined by multiplying the per customer base revenue that was authorized in the most recent rate case by the current number of customers. SMECO's request to revise the BSA billing factors stems primarily from an increase in the number of the GSD customers, which has resulted in an increase in revenue from the BSA surcharge from these GSD customers. And this has resulted in an over recovery from those customers. Now, staff recognizes this is kind of an awkward situation because the proposed adjustment would have a downward impact on the BSA surcharge for the GSD customers. However, it's a base rate case, not a BSA filing, that has always been recognized as the proper forum for changing the monthly revenue factor that is used in calculating the BSA. This is because the rate case is the forum where all the utilities' rates and costs are reviewed in establishing new rates. And staff is also concerned that approval of this filing might be cited by other utilities in an attempt to change the billing factors used in tracking mechanisms and might be proposed in the context of seeking to increase rates as opposed to here where they are seeking to decrease a rate. Therefore, the staff does recommend that the Commission reject the proposed revisions to the GSD monthly factors, and that Commission clarify that any type of revision like this should await SMECO's next rate case.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. We'll turn to counsel for Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Mark McDougall on behalf of SMECO. I agree and take exception with some things that Mr. Albert said today. The first thing I will agree with is that an adjustment to the BSA is generally done in a base rate case. SMECO takes no exception to that whatsoever. Mr. Albert did say that the existing BSA, though, for GSD customers has resulted in an over recovery from those customers. The BSA is set up so that there can be no more than, I believe it's 10% of the base rate as an increase in any given month to any customer, in this case, a GSD customer. So we're not recovering, we're not over recovering from those customers. What happens is that we are able to charge what the Commission has approved in our last base rate case, and any excess is deferred. And what we are finding is that the deferral amount is growing much more quickly than anybody would have anticipated. The last order from the Commission in SMECO's base rate case was in December of 2017. The rates became effective in January of 2018. At that time, SMECO had about 7,800 GSD customers. Today, that number has increased to almost 10,000. And so it is the increase of GSD customers, most of whom take fewer kilowatt hours per month than the average, that is causing the increase in the GSD growing deferred balance. for the BSA. The rates that the commission set in our last base rate case have been appropriate for SMECO. It's maintained our financial ratios. We have not seen a need to come in for additional monies in the last 4 years. We just find that this is an unusual circumstance that it's kind of like a perfect storm. Things kind of came together in this one particular issue that we would like to rectify moving forward, so that the BSA, so that the unrecovered balance doesn't continue to grow, at least at the pace it is today. Right now, SMECO's balance is approximately $12 million. And I believe that Mr. Bradford can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that it is growing now at a rate of about $800,000 per month. And we didn't believe that going in for a rate case to fix this one issue was appropriate at this time. We thought that it would be more appropriate to go in for a rate case when the company felt that there needed to be a wholesale change in its rates. So while this particular issue generally is handled in a base rate case, we believe that the commission can appropriately deal with this issue today. And if it does, I would ask that to resolve one of Mr. Albert's concerns, that it do so without precedent, so that that SMECO could not later come in, or anybody else could come in and point to this case as something that the commission has done that has set a precedent moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. On that last point, it would be easy to mark some of our orders as not setting precedent and others that would carry precedent. What would be the extenuating factor or circumstance here that would result in an order that would accept your proposal and not set precedent?
Well,
Is it the fact that it's simply a decrease?
Well, it is a rate decrease for these GSD customers, or at least, the BSA would be set at a lower rate. SMECO has a history of since I guess right before Mr. Bradford and I came to the company, the last rate case before we came here was in 1994, and since that time we've averaged one rate case every 7 years. We don't want to go in for a rate case to deal with a one issue situation that we believe that can be dealt with outside of a rate case. I mean, it is a rate decrease. We would not, our intention would never be to come to the commission and ask for a rate increase outside of a base rate case. Let's say the BSA was operating in the opposite way. We would not come into the commission for that. But since it is a rate decrease, I don't know, maybe that would be the lack of a precedent-setting reason to approve it today. I'm not really sure. I'm kind of soul searching for it, Mr. Chairman.
No, I understand your struggle there, and I see that situation as well. It is difficult, although for me, I don't think that would satisfy the bar there. Let me ask you one question that you started out with. You were trying to make a distinction or have some nuance between Mr. Albert's characterization as an over-recovery. You described it as a growing deferred balance. You stated that any excess is deferred. I see that as almost the same thing, but you were trying to get at some point, and I want to make sure I understand your point as to the difference between over-recovery and a growing deferred balance. It seems to be the same to me, but I know you disagree.
My point that I was trying to make is that we have not collected more from these customers than was authorized by the commission. If we were collecting more from the customers, then that's what I would characterize as an over recovery. We are collecting from the customers the authorized amount, and to the extent that there are monies that are charges that would exceed that, we're just putting it in a deferral asset.
Thank you. I understand your point now and your sensitivity to that point, because this is not an actual over recovery. You are charging the rates authorized by the commission. Okay, thank you. Other commissioners' questions of the parties? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McDougall, I wanted to ask you, you said since you came to the company in '94, I think, that you've had a rate case on average once every 7 years. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
That is correct. There was a large time period between the '94 case and the next rate case, which was probably around, I'm going to think about 2002, something like that. Mr. Bradford has that figure at hand. But since I've been here, there have not been very many rate cases. We've applied for a couple of rate changes that resulted in increases, and the last one that we entered into, the last one that we applied for was a general rate decrease for most of our customers.
Yeah. So some have been longer than 7 years, and some have been shorter than 7 years, and on average, it's 7.
That is correct. The early ones were longer than 7 years, and the more recent ones have been somewhat shorter. As I had mentioned, the commission's order in this last case was in December of 2017, so we're working on to the 4th year, I guess, to this.
Okay, so maybe it won't be too long till the company comes in. Who knows? Well, that's speculation, but
that is speculation. Commissioner O'Donnell, I have told staff that we will not be filing for a rate case in 2021. I haven't sat down with our financial people to determine when after that it might be, but I can say that will not be in 2021.
all right, well, fair enough. I'm going to ask you, but if you don't know, maybe staff knows, somebody knows. How long has it been since the commission proper heard a SMECO rate case and didn't delegate it to OJ division?
I've been at SMECO. I came in 1998, and we've had, I think it's 4 rate cases since 3 or 4 rate cases since I've been here, and all of them have been before a hearing examiner or administrative law judge.
Yeah, well, just because I'm from Southern Maryland, I might be interested in someday, Mr. Chairman, hearing a SMECO rate case. I think that might be illuminating. So I appreciate your answers. I do have concerns, Mr. Chairman, here with the precedent-setting nature of this, and I believe that we have to be very careful about that. Future commissions, when none of us are no longer, when any of us are no longer here, people may look back and say, wonder why they did that. They did set precedent. So to me, it's a slippery slope, and I think staff kind of got it right here. But
Thank you. Any additional questions of the parties? Commissioner Richard.
I just, I'm also very sympathetic to the staff argument about precedent here, but given that this is a known variable that goes into the BSA calculation, why is it important that we hold that, in that particular variable? I mean, I don't think we hold all the other variables constant in the formula. So I'm just interested to understand maybe a little better why, if we have a known number, we just don't update that routinely.
Commissioner, other colleagues may want to chime in, but I think generally speaking, when you're talking about base revenue, that's the kind of thing exactly that a rate case gets at. We're looking at all the costs and all the revenues in determining the base revenue requirement associated with the service. So as opposed to something more mechanical, like the independent variable here that's adjusted for every month, of course, is the number of customers. That's obviously a number that stands by itself. There's no interrelated or offsetting issues associated there. So that's my understanding about the sensitivity about, in this instance, the monthly revenue factor, because it is such an integral part of a rate case determination where you're looking at the whole spectrum of cost and revenue.
Okay, and maybe I'm just not understanding. Isn't the company just asking to change, I think, as I'm looking at the bug sheet here, the B variable, to just update it to the accurate customer count in this class?
No. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Schumer, behalf of staff. No, so they're not just changing the number of customers. So that actually changes in the monthly BSA filings. That they'll have the accurate customer count. What is also changing, as Mr. McDougall did touch upon a little bit, is the change in usage patterns. So the main reason why there's this huge increase in the GSD class is that this GSND class, the General Service Non-Demand class, was closed, I believe, in 2016. So those customers have been migrating to the GSD class, and they have a different usage pattern. As Mr. McDougall said, they use a lot less energy on average than the previous GSD customers. So that's changing. That's one of the main reasons really why they have to change this BSA factor. So that there you're kind of getting to the billing determinants and the usage. It's less about the customer count at that point.
Okay. Okay. I think this reaffirms that this is probably best taken up in a rate case. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm getting a sense of direction on this matter. If the commission were not to accept SMECO's proposal before it today, I'd like to make a motion before the commission that the commission consider allowing SMECO to suspend its BSA for its GSD class customers until the earlier of this unrecovered balance being worked off, or SMECO's next base rate case.
Mr. McDougall, with respect to your motion, what do you mean by it being worked off? That we effectively, the overcollection, reach a point of zero?
That would be correct.
Mr. Chairman, oh, sorry.
Sure.
I was just going to suggest that such a motion would require, at least from my opinion, some analysis and due diligence to maybe think about the ramifications of such a motion. I would not be comfortable acting on such a motion today from the company.
I would be curious to hear from staff just generally on the motion Mr. McDougall just attempted to articulate.
Brooke Hoff again on behalf of staff. So we had some discussions with SMECO on Monday, and Mr. McDougall did propose this as another option. I guess I would tend to agree with Commissioner O'Donnell that it seems like a possible solution to this kind of single issue rate making issue. But again, we've been trying to think through the possible ramifications and impacts this may have. And obviously it's a little hard to wrap your mind around that in just a day or two.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. Lucy Shea for staff. I'd also like to say that good morning. I'm not opposed to this, to the idea of suspending the BSA charges for this class. However, I do believe it should be come in as a regular filing where we can analyze it and work it up
Mr. McDougall, your oral motion here likely does require some further vetting by both the staff and the commission. What would you propose to do to allow some additional time for your suspension idea?
Well, Mr. Chairman, based upon the conversations that I'm hearing, SMECO could either withdraw the instant filing before the commission, or the commission could deny SMECO's request outright. But SMECO would then put together a subsequent filing proposing that the BSA factor for these GSD customers be suspended, as I had spoken about today. And that way staff could do the necessary analysis that it felt comfortable in doing, propose it to the commission, and then the commission can issue a reasoned decision sometime down the road.
I think that's the better course, Mr. McDougall. Do you recall, though, on the present February 19th filing, do you seek to withdraw it at this point, or do you wish that the commission make a ruling?
Gosh, I guess it's 6 one way, half dozen another. I will withdraw it so you don't have to take any action today.
Thank you. The utility has withdrawn its request. We will see you, Mr. McDougall, probably in a few more weeks or a month or two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none and seeing no additional matters before the commission on its administrative agenda today, have a great day. This meeting is now adjourned.